All right, here we go. I don't know if it's going to be the second or third segment of the show. We got Stefan. How do you pronounce your name? I've only seen it written.
Stefan.
All
Stefan.
right, all right. He is over in
Yeah.
the UK now. What part? What part? London? Where are we at?
Manchester.
Where's that?
Manchester, yeah.
Nice. All right.
That's
Cool.
Manchester,
Cool.
that's Northwest.
All right. He is a friend of my brother's. Went to college with him. Did you play football over there at Buena Vista?
I did play football. We were on the same team. It was his senior year, my freshman year. I went in the spring. So I got the back end of his junior year and all of his senior year. Yeah.
All right. Tell us a little about yourself, other than where you live and how I got to know you, which we may have already. Good Lord.
Well, I'll start off with this. So, your brother wore number 88. I assume I don't think I've ever spoken to him about it, but I assume that was because of Alan Page, who played defensive end, or was it his your grandfather? Was it?
Honestly, it might have been random. He's not a Vikings fan, so that's me.
He is a Notre Dame fan now.
Yeah.
So it's like there you go. So you were 88. I've always wore 88 as well. That's why my email address is as 88 at the end. I was born in 1998.
Nice.
Yeah, just like West had number 88. So I really wanted that number and I had to wait my turn. But so I think we became friends because of that as well. And obviously we shared a passion about sports. A bit about myself. Yeah, I went to college at BV. Did you go to BV or did you go
I
somewhere
went to
else?
I went to Iowa State, Wartburg for a year though.
Iowa State. Okay. Okay, nice.
Yep,
So yeah,
unfortunately.
big sports fan, big Cowboys fans. You can probably see behind me. Got a
Ugh.
Roger Staubach jersey. But Dodgers as well, Penguins. Yeah. Don't know if you want to dive too much into anything else, politics or.
You know what?
Yeah.
Let's just see where it takes us.
Yeah.
I
All
disagree
right.
with every single one of those teams. I'm a Bruins fan, hockey, Red Sox, and Vikings.
I can respect those teams though. It's okay.
Oh, fucking every single one of my teams are master choke artists.
Yeah, you had some good history there. I'm a Notre Dame fan as well, actually.
They haven't done anything since I've been born. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
Bruins had the fucking blew the best season in NHL history to lose in the first round of the goddamn Panthers.
I do remember watching that as well. I was very surprised to see it.
Had to go through a
So
couple
they had a really
changes.
good team that year. I thought you were destined to win it.
No, I'm a fan of them, so that's not how that works. I got a question for what do you guys call you guys call football soccer football over there, right? Because you're from
Yeah,
a
yeah, that's
silly
right.
place. What do you call like American football? Do you have a specific
We
name
call
for
it
it?
American football.
That's boring. Jesus, I was expecting
Yeah.
more out of you.
That's it. Yeah.
Driving the left side of the road. Don't call it. It's a silly country. Do you eat beans on toast?
Sometimes, yeah. It's not my
I.
favorite,
It's
but
not bad. I actually like it.
it's all right. Yeah.
No.
It's
Yeah. All
okay.
right.
Yeah.
So, did you watch Super Bowl? That's what we're here to talk about.
Yes, I did. Oh, I watched it live.
Oh, nice. Jesus.
We're 6 hours ahead of you guys, so I was
Good
watching it.
Lord.
This was actually the first year I was falling asleep watching it.
Well, you weren't the only one.
So I made myself stay awake till the end, and then went to overtime. I was like, oh come on, I just want to go to sleep.
Oh no, the writers had to do. They
Yeah,
had to take it down to a nail biter.
yeah, of course.
God,
Are
that.
you on that bandwagon? You say it was scripted, or
I wasn't. I was in on the joke before the
yeah,
game, but now maybe did everything they possibly could to give Kelsey that last touchdown.
yeah, yeah. I can somewhat see that, but honestly, I think some of the things that happened in that game would definitely they couldn't have been scripted.
I
I don't think. I think they both made some incredible. Same with any sports. When people say, "Oh,
well,
sports is
not
scripted," I don't
scripted
know how you can.
necessarily, but they have stars that they don't want you to touch.
All right, yeah,
Yeah.
I can definitely get
Like when was
behind
the
that,
last
but
time
it's
the
some of
Chiefs
those
had a holding
plays.
call?
I
It's
don't know
it's the
how you
don't
can
touch Brady
script.
rule.
Yeah, of course, and that goes back to it was like me and Wes talk about this all the time. Where it was the 2018 championship game. The Chiefs at the time, if you can imagine, you can stretch your mind back that far. Were underdogs, hadn't won a Super Bowl. They actually hadn't won a playoff game since 1993.
Oh yeah.
At that point. And then they got to the championship that year, and they should have really beat the Patriots, but they had that awful roughing the passer call against Brady,
Yep.
where he didn't even tell about Chris Jones, who's arguably one of the better defensive tackles of the past decade, hit Brady's shoulder pad as he was releasing the
Yep.
ball, and then
Yep.
got called a 15-yard extended a drive, and I think they ended up getting a touchdown on that drive. And then there was bunch of other terrible calls in that game as well. Like, the same thing happens in Mahomes, but they didn't call it. So it's like I think that was Yeah, that's where oh, you can't touch Brady rule comes
No,
from. And
yeah,
like,
when
how
the NFL is
we don't
it's a
know.
business, you know. I think it's one of
Yeah,
the only sports leagues that's designated as like an entertainment thing and not sports,
yeah.
like
I
WWE and
can
shit.
see that. It's like, I know it's also they don't the Brady rule. It goes back to that 2008 week one. So the Patriots just came off a 16 in those season. They lost in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
Week one of 2008. Brady got. I can't remember who it was. You might remember. It's like one of the defensive tackles hit Brady below the knee, and I can't remember what the injury was, but he was out for the season for that. So the league was like, "Oh, we have to do something to protect the quarterback now." It's not as if injuries ever happened before, you know.
No,
Like
God,
it's the
no.
first quarterback injury, but because it was Brady, because it was the Golden Boy,
Joe
it was like, "Oh,
Theismann
we have
flu.
to protect the quarterbacks now. We have to put." And since then, I think since that 2008 season, it's just been like we need to do more and more to protect the quarterbacks because these guys are the ones
Yep.
that make us. I can understand it to an
No,
extent
I think it
because
was
when you lose
Aaron
your quarterback,
Rodgers. I
yeah,
heard
Aaron Rodgers.
he
So that
said
was
something
against the
like the
Vikings,
big
wasn't it?
stars, if they get hurt or something like that, they'll shoot them up with all kinds of drugs and just get them back out there. Which is insane.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend. I don't think that's very healthy to do.
God,
To be honest with you, but
well, you know, porn does the same thing, I believe.
yeah, I would imagine it probably does.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, these days, basically the same thing. That Kelsey jackass doing the Pfizer commercials. You see that shit?
Yes, I have
God,
seen
that was
that.
crazy.
So I've got
He's an idiot. I hear him talk, and he just sounds like he has an IQ of 5.
well, he's probably been hit in the head so many times
Oh,
that he
gee,
does
yeah,
have
they
an
all have
IQ of 5.
CTE.
Yeah, it's like yeah.
And Taylor Swift she is a, oh, what's the word? Bit of a curveball from who he's usually dated.
Who Taylor Swift's usually dated or
No,
Kelsey?
Kelsey. And
Kelsey, okay. I'm not familiar with his
Illuminati
former
probably got together
relationship.
and yeah. What was
I'm
that?
not too familiar with his former relationships.
I don't know.
To be honest.
Just doodle. He likes a specific kind of woman, and like she is a complete 180 from that. Honestly, I think she is a solid 6. What about you?
I think she's yeah, I actually used to like Taylor Swift. Was like not like a super fan, but just like I used to be like, oh, some of the music's good. Some of the old school music when she did country.
Oh yeah. Are you
Well,
familiar with what a butterface is?
no, you want to explain that one?
It's an American term. It's like if she's pretty, but her face, she is
Okay,
the
yeah.
exact opposite
I'm
of that, where she
following,
has a
yeah.
nice face,
All
but you
right,
see her at certain angles, you kind of wince a little bit because she's
right,
just doing
yeah.
a 2x4 impression.
I can agree with you there. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Like
I don't think she has much of a body. I'd imagine Travis Kelsey being an athlete and everything. He'd want a girl who's going to match the same
what am
energy,
I
like
fucking a
spend a lot
12-year-old
of
here?
time with him.
Jesus. No, it's like she's the type of person whose bloodline should have been wiped out by a saber-toothed cat like thousands of years ago. That and the that Olivia Dunn chick.
Olivia, yeah.
Like you see her at certain
I don't
angles,
know.
you kind of cringe a little bit.
Yeah, yeah, I get you. Yeah,
No.
yeah. It's like she can fix that. Like, she's got the money to have a personal trainer and get
Well,
in the gym.
you know, yeah, but well, no, she's too busy taking private jet flights that put more carbon in the air than any of us will in our
Yeah,
entire
you know,
lives.
but she's she is an
God forbid
environmentalist,
she flies with
of
us
course. Yeah,
peasants.
yeah, of course. Like, but she's an environmentalist though, and that's what environmentalists do. Every single one of them, from Taylor Swift to the King of My Country, they all
Oh, yep.
take private jets
How's he
on
doing, by the way? I heard he has ass cancer.
their trips to talk about to lecture us about saying it's the people who drive their cars to work. They're causing
You
this
are the
problem.
problem, not us.
They say as they take their private jets back. Because like you can do it like we're doing it now. I didn't take a jet all over to the way to the US to do this show. Like you
Yeah, no,
just do
I
it on
heard you
Zoom.
guys are getting like Europe's doing some crazy like you can't have short haul flights or something anymore or something like that. It might be France too.
But I don't think so. I think it's I think you can do that. That might be just a rumor. They might be talking
I thought
about
that was
doing
something
that,
the
but
EU was doing. I know they're silly.
we're not a part of the EU
Oh
anymore.
yeah, Brexit. How do you feel about that?
Thankfully. Yeah. So at the time I was 18, so it was like the first time I was ever able to vote for anything. And so
Yeah.
at the time, I haven't actually spoken about this publicly, but at the time I was very much in the camp as I want to remain in the EU. And it's for very selfish reasons, but I feel as though you should vote for selfish reasons.
What were those selfish
It
reasons?
was because it would directly affect the economy and the state, the exchange rate.
Yeah. Oh,
So
that makes sense.
it used to be you can get a pound, which is our currency. It was the equivalent of about $1.57. which was pretty good. Now it's and then it went down. It went from like $1.57 the day we left the EU. It went down to $1.24. So when you think, I obviously I didn't get a full scholarship. I got a really good scholarship, but it was it didn't cover all of it. So it was like I had to pay my room and board was now infinitely more expensive because I was paying in my currency.
Yeah.
I say I was charged in dollars, but paying in my currency. So I was getting like it would have been $1.57. That went down to $1.24. So I was like, that's the reason I was like massively in favor of remaining. But it's like as I've looked into it, I was like, I think the EU is so corrupt. And he's so corrupt, and I don't want my country being dictated by the people in it. And I think a lot of other European countries are eventually going to leave as well because they don't want to be pushed around and say you have to give this much money. And it's like we're wasting so much money. It's like they were saying dictating our laws, like saying you have to take this many people in.
Oh like, yeah. So that's becoming a huge thing. Ireland, France had massive riots, but you didn't fucking hear about them because
they don't talk about it in the mainstream media.
No, of course they wouldn't talk about that. France
is full of lies.
Civil war this summer.
Yeah,
that was crazy.
Yeah,
Sean McGregor is going to become president of Ireland because of it.
What did you say?
Why did I say Sean McGregor? Jesus, Conor McGregor.
Conor McGregor might become president, prime minister of Ireland. Yeah, he do a much better job than the current prime minister. I can't remember his name, but I have no respect for him whatsoever. He's just like he's one of these completely. He's like Justin Trudeau. He's probably the closest example.
He is a walking vagina.
Idiot. Yeah, exactly.
Like, what else I about to say? He's a pussy. Honestly, he's like he's
going on about the only thing I listen to.
I don't know how to describe my hatred of him.
Trudeau or the Irish Prime Minister?
Trudeau.
Yeah, I hate him. It's like he might be even worse than Joe Biden.
Did you see the people kind thing?
I was like, she's really. I think. What do you say to these? I don't know if you've seen them. The conspiracy theory that Justin Trudeau is Fidel Castro's son.
Oh, absolutely. It's completely uncanny. Like his mother was like friends with him or something like that. That's crazy.
So that originates from. Have you seen? So his mother was it was doing like a trip around to different countries and was spent a lot of time in Cuba with Fidel Castro.
Yep.
And then shortly after, Justin was like his dad was called Justin as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yep.
So Justin Jr. or the third was born shortly after. So it was kind of like adds up that it might have been 9 months since she came back. So he also looks a little bit like him as well. And he also has dictator policies as well. So it's like regardless of whether he's Fidel Castro's son or not, he does have the same sort of policies.
Yeah. So who cares?
I was like, have you seen in Canada what they're doing now? They've got this thing called MAID.
MAID? Oh god, that's horrifying.
That's insane.
Like veterans will call the hotline and say, "Hey, I have PTSD. Have you thought about killing yourself?"
Oh, you thought about killing yourself, eh?
Well, it's kind of the opposite of what I want to do.
I heard a story. It's literally gotten to the point with woke politics that they managed to make it woke to say, "Oh, why don't you just kill yourself?" They managed to make genocide woke basically by doing this.
Yeah, I think it was in Holland. They basically held an old woman down and gave it to her.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous.
That is terrifying.
I think it's evil. Honestly,
no, it absolutely is. And they say like
some of the things that they got on this for reasons that they can assist in killing you is if you got anorexia or if you got depression. It's like, well, we just went through a pandemic, and it's like I was very lucky in this. I think your family was probably very lucky as well. That we had a house with lots of land.
Yep.
And we had extended family and lived in a nice neighborhood.
Yep.
So we got
a red state over here.
Yeah, of course. Iowa. Kim Reynolds. Great girl. Yeah.
Kimmy.
Yeah, love her. But yeah, so other people, they lived in like absolute dumps. They lived in like a 1-bedroom apartment, which you were probably paying about $3,000 a month for or something, and like some dump where they couldn't go outside.
Well, hey, we had the rent freezes and then we had the rent freezes, so then the landlords couldn't pay any of that. The banks took their shit, so now BlackRock is buying everything over here.
Yeah, and that's that's a whole other can of worms that we can get to in a minute. But it's like going back to the pandemic thing, is a lot of people got depressed. A lot of people got depressed because they're like living in a 1-bedroom apartment, couldn't exercise, not seeing anybody. No,
being told if you do, you'll kill your grandmother.
Yeah, which was ridiculous, and it turns out it was completely infactual as well.
No.
So it's like, yeah, a lot of people would have got depressed. So if you live in Canada, let's say you lived in Toronto, which is a good example of a place like that. And then he called up, said, "Oh, I'm feeling depressed." And it was like, "Oh, why is it? Oh, you thought about killing yourself?" It was like, "Well, it's funny you should mention that. Yeah, I have actually, because we don't see it getting better." It's like, no, you're
Allow
supposed
us
to
to
tell
help
them.
you.
It was like, no, don't kill yourself. Things are going to get better, okay? I was like, things will not always be like this. There's people you can always talk to. It's like, no, now they made it woke to kill yourself.
I would be
Or
great
to,
at that
and to
job. A
help you
reverse
kill yourself.
suicide
So you're
hotline.
paying money in taxes, saying, we will pay in taxes. You don't have a choice in this for you to help kill other people. It used to be like
No, yeah.
euthanasia. So say, oh, this person's got like terrible
Yeah, it's
cancer. They're going
eugenics
to,
all over again. They're just
yeah,
bringing it back from the 50s.
yeah, lobotomies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, maybe not the worst thing ever. I think, there's certainly worse things they could do to crazy people, such as allow them to just kind of roam free on the streets in New York and masturbate on women on the subways.
Yeah,
Quick,
we do need to
quick
bring back
laser to the
insane
cranium
asylums.
takes care of that real quick.
Definitely need to bring back insane asylums.
No, and I blame Reagan for that.
Massively, yeah. I love Reagan, but
No, honestly, he's not even my top 5. Big conservative,
well,
not even.
there's been 45 presidents, 46 actually, if you count in Joe Biden as a president, or if you just count in Obama as a
I don't
term.
want to make a judgment on Biden because his term isn't finished yet, but I will. He's definitely lower 5, honest. Yeah.
Oh, he's my number one worst president of all
Number
time,
one
actually.
worst. Yeah, I can see. I got Jimmy
Yeah,
Carter.
I was actually, who else have I got up there?
Oh, yeah, Jimmy Carter, Grover Cleveland,
Jimmy Carter, James Buchanan.
James Buchanan, Andrew Jackson, fucked up
I
Reconstruction.
don't know enough about Andrew Jackson to say he was definitely worse than these guys, but it's like, I know that. You tell me a bit about Andrew Jackson's, like, for why you think he's one of the worst.
He just kept the way he handled Reconstruction after the Civil War was just kind of terrible. And you trace that back to how the South basically like Jim Crow and all that stuff, the Dixiecrats, that you can really trace that back all the way to him, essentially.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I would actually like to read some more into him. I don't know enough about him to
comment. Oxford History of the United States. They have a whole series of books on stuff like that.
Okay, awesome. I was like, yeah, so something I got Bill Clinton in there. I really do not like Bill Clinton in the slightest.
Well, he was the last actually kind of blue collar. I hate to say that because the Clintons are monsters, but he was the last like actual blue collar kind of liberal. And if you compare like his policies, and he wasn't even that long ago in the 90s, to Joe Biden, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you compare like a Donald Trump to even like an Eisenhower. That's a far fairer comparison. People say like, oh, the right has gone so far right, the left's gone so far left. No, it's not that at all. The left has gone way far left and the right has moved a little far left.
Yeah, Trump is like 30 years ago would have been considered a centrist.
His policies are pretty liberal, honestly.
Exactly radical.
No, I was
not
like
exactly
a
radical
supporter.
Policies. Yeah, just like he just wants to bring America back to a time not even that long ago.
He's a New York liberal, is what he is.
Bring back to America when Bush Senior was president back in like 92. I was like, which wasn't even that long ago. And the reason I say Bill Clinton's one of the worst presidents of all time is because of the NAFTA deal that he put in place in 94, which removed a lot of which I think the NAFTA deal, which Clinton put in place, directly led to Donald Trump being elected president. Because
that was one of the things he kind of piggybacked off of.
I'm sure you know all about it, but what it did was it took away all these American manufacturing jobs because it gave free trade to not just Canada, but Mexico as well.
Yeah.
So all these businesses were like car manufacturers, for example. Detroit used to be a thriving place for building cars. They were like, hang on, why are we paying Americans when we can just pay people in Mexico to do it for like, 75% less? And what happened was all these people lost their job, but the bottom line on the profits at the end of the year looks really good. So if you own stocks in these companies, you think, wow, record profits. Bill Clinton's done such a great job. But what he was doing, it was actually kicking a can further down the road. It was the equivalent of taking out a credit card, buying a bunch of stuff.
Now we're dealing with it.
All this stuff that I've got. But then you got to pay the debt back with interest. And that directly led to Donald Trump being elected president because there's so many blue collar people who were like, oh, he wants to take us back to before NAFTA was a thing. He wants to bring American manufacturing jobs back. And I was massively in favor of that.
And a lot of them did come back, at least for a while.
Yeah. And I think
what happened to those jobs in Mexico? Did they not just kind of stay? The country seems to have not gotten better, and a lot of them are coming here.
Are a lot of them coming here, or are they just using Mexico to people from other countries,
Well,
which are
I
worse
know
than
it's all
Mexico, using
Mexico.
it to get to
Everything south
America?
of Texas is Mexico, in the same way everything north of Minneapolis is Canada. That's what I say.
All right,
I can't
interesting
name the
stuff.
countries. We don't do
Well,
geography here in the U.S.
sorry, Venezuela is one. El
Venezuela,
Salvador, El
El Salvador
Salvador.
is actually doing pretty well because like
Yeah,
it was no Ecuador. I think my pride thing is either Ecuador or El Salvador. They like their new president rounded up all like the known drug dealers and gang members and like displayed them in cages publicly to like
that
humiliate
wasn't
them.
Argentina.
Was it? No, Argentina is a libertarian. It was one of
Oh
the
yeah, Malay.
E countries. It was Ecuador or
Okay.
El Salvador. They basically just wiped out all the drug dealers. And there's another country that's doing it too. But we don't have the balls to do that.
Of course not.
No, God, no.
Even Trump. I was
No.
like, you'd have to go way back to find a president who would have done that.
I don't. Well, these days you can't arrest like certain blue states of like California have turned prison into a revolving door because we have the idea that the simple fact of there being more of a certain people in prison means that's racist, not the fact that those people commit the crimes.
Yeah, well, this when you look at the statistics and per capita, there's a certain group who are committing all these crimes. Maybe you should, if you really care about that group of people, you should do something to address it.
Yes.
Yeah, there's like
Arrest the
not just say,
criminals,
oh, it's
keep them in prison.
racist, and then continue to allow that problem to happen. It's like if you're a teacher, for example, and it's a good example to use, I guess, because everybody's been there at one point.
Yep.
And if you have a kid who's constantly
was a teacher.
causing trouble, or a group of kids who are constantly causing trouble, you don't just say, "Oh, just let them do it. It's okay. It's not their fault. You know, they got problems
That
at
thing
home."
to
No,
do
no,
is
you
okay.
address
Now,
the problem.
giving wedgies is okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I was like, you have to address it in a different. I think Gavin Newsom is probably the most
He's a
evil
demon.
person.
Like he has demon eyes.
Yeah, he is evil. Like
He creeps me out, honestly.
I always describe him as like a used car salesman in the sense that he doesn't have the people's best interest. But what I will say, he's a much better communicator than Biden. I think he's a very,
that's good. He's like Patrick
very
Bateman.
slick, very sharp. And he's did you watch that debate he did on Fox News with Sean Hannity?
DeSantis?
He was debating.
He got his ass kicked.
He did get his ass kicked, but he should have been way worse because he had no facts on his side whatsoever. So I was like, is that the facts that he actually managed to make it somewhat debatable? I was like, makes me.
No, yeah, because his whole thing was just DeSantis going, well, look, California's terrible. Everyone's leaving it, and they're coming to Florida. Texas, yeah, well, you're racist or homophobic.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah, he had no facts.
Every like argument against Republican governance, all you have to do is just point to California. Say, why are people not leaving there in massive droves?
The thing is, you're right 100%. I'm worried. It's like I think it's going to get to a point where Democrats are going to say, we're not going to win this election with Biden. He clearly isn't capable of being the president of the United States. Not that matters for the first 4 years.
They wouldn't put in Gavin Newsom. If anything, it'd be Michelle Obama. That's what terrifies me.
Yes. It not that it mattered for the first 4 years anyway.
No.
But I think they're going to replace him. Because they're gonna come up with the excuse, oh, he's too old. So then you got either Kamala Harris, and it's like she's even more unpopular.
They hate her. There's no way he's gonna be here.
Yeah, she's literally an affirmative action hire. Like she was given that job because
she's also
in 2020.
a moron. Yeah, no, that's the thing. Like several different candidates. When she dropped out in 2020, she was polling in the single digits, and she got the job because she's most qualified, aka checks the most boxes.
Affirmative action.
Yes.
Is what it was. I don't care if people want to say that. It's because she's a woman of color.
She really likes buses and Venn diagrams. Have you heard?
Does she really?
Gosh, if you just hear her talk, she has like the vocabulary of a 5-year-old.
Well, what do you say? So I made so I decided in 2020, obviously it was very boring at the time because we were all locked up. So this election was like huge, even in the UK as well. And there's like most of the people in the UK strongly disagreed with what I had to say. Because I lived in the US, I knew exactly what it was like.
Don't hear now, but when this gets released, you'll hear sirens.
I was like, a lot of people in the UK, they didn't get it because they didn't live in the US, but I did. And I was like, look, Trump is a fantastic president. Gas over there costs $2.75 a gallon or something, whatever it was at the time.
During COVID, it got below $2. That was beautiful. I remember that.
Yeah, it did. I remember that. I just like, and in Iowa, at least, and probably out west and down south, it was more expensive.
It was
like
Iowa, Nebraska, $7 a gallon. Crazy.
Yeah. California was terrible during 2021, 2022.
That's why people give Trump shit.
a lot of people in this country really didn't like Trump because the media over here is owned by the
Yes.
same people who own the media in the US. That is BlackRock, Rupert Murdoch, etc.
Yeah.
As like this, the media over here it still is. So I say, oh, Trump is bad, Biden good, even though they can't really defend Biden anymore. So it's slowly turning on him. It's the same thing. I had to tell everybody that no, they are wrong. They're lying. The mainstream media is full of that. Trump was a great president. Gas was cheap. Inflation was low. Jobs were coming back to America. No foreign wars. No new foreign wars. At least.
No new foreign wars.
Relations with China. Great relations with Russia and
I
North
wouldn't
Korea.
call them great relations. It's more they're terrified of the guy. Like,
yeah, well,
I hear Putin say he wants Biden to win because with Trump, he murdered, like, not murder, killed Iran's top general, and they didn't do anything about it. That's brinksmanship. They're afraid he might nuke them, and there's value.
That's exactly what we need. We can't just be a pushover.
You want a Caesar. You want Russia to be terrified of the guy.
Yeah, exactly. And they got on well as well. I think they respected each other.
Yeah,
and that's exactly what you want because you're not going to bomb a country which you respect. So it's like you're not going to bomb a country which you're scared of either. So
it's like try to bomb any other countries while he's sitting there too.
Propaganda in the UK in the 2020 election was so heavily in favor of Biden. It just made me sick. All the celebrities, same as in the US, because obviously I follow a lot of Americans on Twitter. It's probably mostly Americans actually. But in the UK, so there's a soccer pundit. He was when he was playing, he was one of my favorite players. But he's just so ridiculously left wing. It's called Gary Lineker. He used to play for England. He used to be a really good player, one of my favorite players. But he's so left wing, and everything he says is so left wing. I was like, you're a multi-millionaire. I was like, it doesn't affect you in the same way. And it was so pro Biden, everything that he was saying. So I commented once, and I was like, well, when Biden won the election, it was like he made a tweet saying the world just feels a much safer and kinder place today because obviously he's got Trump derangement syndrome. So I commented saying, it was like, you think the world's a much better place because you got a 77-year-old racist, dementia-riddled idiot.
No, the border doesn't exist. Ukraine's on fire.
Plus a vice president.
Taiwan, no.
Yeah, plus a vice president who whored herself out to get to the position that she's in makes you think that the world is a better place. And fair enough, I suppose. And I got so many replies on that. You know, when you make a tweet on Twitter, sometimes like you think, oh, I might just get a couple of engagements, 1 or 2 comments. I got like hundreds and hundreds of comments.
Must have used like a keyword or something.
Yeah, to the extent where I thought I'm going to be applying for jobs. And I was like, I know,
like that's crazy. I've heard stories.
I'm nearly a senior in college, so I was like, I need to delete this actually. So I eventually deleted it. I wish I didn't.
Because, so you decided to start a podcast, totally.
I was like, yeah, I've been doing that for age. I feel as I can get away with that because there's so much sports content in there that if somebody's looking to hire me, they're not going to listen to 2.5 hours of me talk about sports. So I can a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Well, I'm just sticking my head straight in the hornet's nest with mine. Straight political comedy.
I'm self-employed now, so I work for myself.
Good for you.
So I don't care. I'll say whatever I want now.
I'm waiting for the Daily Wire to call me. Then I'll get there.
I'd love to work for the Daily Wire. I listen to
Shapiro. I know you're watching this.
Are you more on Candace Owens' side or Ben Shapiro's?
I don't like Candace Owens. She gives me grifter vibes.
I really like her. She's one of my favorites actually. It's like I can understand like you might disagree with her on certain topics, but I think the foundation, the core, they're all on the right side.
I don't know. She has had a feud with just about every major like conservative pundit out there. I think she's very standoffish.
I can respect that. She's standing up for what she believes in.
No, yeah.
You don't have to agree.
This meeting will not end in 10 minutes. Fucking Zoom.
Yeah, we might have to reset it.
Reset it? How long have we been going for?
I don't know. It's like you're the one with the timer.
Well, there's nothing on this end. Shit. Okay, you know what? We'll keep talking. If we're still talking, we'll just restart it.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
So yeah, what I was gonna get at earlier is so you got that administration in the White House at the moment. What are the chances that he's going to be replaced? And if he's going to be replaced, the front runner is Gavin Newsom.
Oh, so God, I don't think anymore. I think it would be Michelle Obama.
Worst possible case scenario. You think it would be Michelle Obama?
Newsom, I think they got scared after that DeSantis debate. I don't think they like him anymore. I think if she wants to, it would be Michelle Obama, and I think she'd win is the problem.
That would be a massive problem. I don't think she wants it.
God, I hope
From what
not.
I've heard, I think she has no interest in doing it. She just wants to live a quiet life with the millions that they used for inside the trading when her husband was president.
And their beach house
Um,
and their massive beach houses that they said would be drowned in about 10 years.
oh yeah, of course they bought loads of oceanfront properties, but global warming is definitely real. And,
Well, if she did
that.
win, of course, we would still have yet to break the streak of not having a female president.
Yeah, well, it's been a good run.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I wouldn't mind a female president as long as it was somebody like Carrie Lake or Kim Reynolds.
I don't know because once a month they're just gonna bomb someone just to like
you,
in a press conference.
you know
Guys, I
something.
cannot deal with this right now.
Yeah.
Chocolate.
You know something. Actually, I think the last good prime minister the UK had was a woman. I think it
Thatcher.
was Margaret Thatcher.
Margaret
Yeah,
Thatcher. I like Thatcher.
she did a really good job. Actually, a lot of people hate her for the same reason
Oh
that a
no,
lot of
it's the
Americans hate
same
Ronald
bullshit
Reagan.
they do for
Even
here with
though
Trump.
a lot of British people hate Margaret Thatcher even today, even people who weren't alive at the time and didn't
Oh yeah,
and
it's the
don't
same here.
understand the benefits which they're still receiving from Thatcher's tenure as the prime minister of this country. It's
Yeah,
the same reason a lot of Americans, young Americans,
hate
liberals
Reagan.
hate Ronald
Yeah.
Reagan,
Yep.
even though Reagan ended the Cold War and did a lot of good things for Americans.
Yep.
So Thatcher was actually the last good prime minister we've had. I think everybody after there was one after her called John Major who was like okay. I was
I
like,
thought
he didn't
the
do
dude with the
anything wrong.
crazy hair you just had was not too bad. He was
Boris
like kind of back
Johnson,
and
no,
forth.
I think so. I think
It's Boris
to be
Johnson.
fair, he was dealt a bad hand because he took over as prime minister during the pandemic. So yeah, he couldn't. We don't know exactly how good of a prime minister he could have been, but he always put other countries before his own, which is ridiculous because he's one of the main campaigners for Brexit. So it's like
But
Tucker
don't you know we're
Carlson.
global citizens?
Yeah. So he also, I don't know if you know this, but he went to in April of 2022. He went to Ukraine. Did you watch the Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin
Oh,
interview?
yep, I did. Yep.
So you remember when Putin said they had an agreement called the Minsk Accords set up where the war was going to end, and then Boris Johnson
They
went
pulled him
over
out of
to
it. Yeah.
Ukraine and told them not to sign it and keep fighting. So I was like, well, as far as I'm concerned, I've known that for a while, by the way. But I was like, as far as I'm concerned, he committed an act of treason because thousands of British people. It was a really cold, and probably not cold for Midwestern standards, but for the UK standards, we had a very, very cold winter in 2022
Oh
and
yeah.
early 2023.
You guys got insanely lucky. Like Europe, if it would have been a little bit colder, like fuel shortages, you guys are screwed.
Yeah, 1,000 people died in December of 2022 on record. I was like, you might say, oh, 1,000 people in a country of however many millions. Like, no, 1,000 of your citizens froze to death because you chose to go over to Ukraine and continue this war, which could have ended. And it was also like the Nord Stream pipeline, which was blown up by the
that was
CIA,
us. Our bad.
Which obviously contributed to that as well. It's like, but as far as I'm concerned, he's not putting the people who elected him first.
No.
As far as I'm concerned, no, you're a neocon, basically. You know better than George Bush.
No, that's kind of the thing these days. You can't put your own citizens first.
It's like you can now because other countries have done it. Italy's doing it at the moment. Giorgia Meloni is doing a really good job. It's like Javier Milei is doing it in Argentina. Javier Milei, a couple of days ago, balanced the budget in Argentina. They've been in debt for since the 50s or the early 60s.
I didn't like libertarians until I heard about that.
He's been in office for 3 months. I was like, he's not. It's like that's ridiculous how he's managed to do that.
Yeah, it's insane what you hear. Like, Italy just elected I think it was a while ago, elected someone who's like the same party as like Mussolini, but like that's like saying the Democrats today are still the party of the Klan, which I'd be more relevant. That was more recent.
She's really good, Giorgia Meloni. She's a part of the she's a member of the party of the brothers, Italian brothers, I think it is.
Yep. And then Hungary too. What's that guy's name? Oh
yeah, I know exactly who you mean. He did an interview with Tucker Carlson.
They're one of the only countries to turn around their birth rate because they made like a tax incentive where like for every child you have, you get 25% off.
It's big for all then.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do for your country when you actually give a shit about your citizens.
Interesting guy. I was like, yeah, so you need people who are going to put your own country first.
No, and the media they claim it's all like what's the word here? They're trying to claim it's like another rise of fascism in Europe. No, it's a complete like the pendulum swinging back from the crazy leftist bullshit we've had the past like 15 years.
If you actually look into what she wants to do, she's pretty moderate.
It's not at all.
Actually,
Yeah.
she just wants to control immigration, and she wants to put the nuclear family first, and she wants to make sure that Italian culture in Italy is
God
front and
forbid.
center. It's an Italian culture, so you got Catholicism.
Yep.
And we're both Catholics, so we both massively agree with that. And you got the nuclear family marriage, and the nuclear family being a straight couple with children.
Yep.
As I want to encourage that. I was like, what's wrong with that, really? I was like, that's your culture. And then the argument is, it's not racist. It's the fact that when you import,
you can't handle thousands a day coming in.
Yeah, import people who don't agree with your culture, even if they're perfectly good people, which a lot of them are not perfectly good people.
No, and they don't assimilate. Like I've known like Italian foreign exchange students have come over here, and they just say there are places where I can't let my sisters go. My mom can't go there. The police will not go there. Just
it's the same thing in any Western city, really, isn't it? But it's a shame. It is a shame. But it's like, when you import people who don't agree with your culture, you have different. Well, it's going to completely change everything. You can't have a society like that. I was like, is that really so radical to say that?
Well, they don't want countries to have their own kind of cultures because, like I said, they think we're all just supposed to be kind of homogenous global citizens.
Well, if you know anything about American history, 20th century American history, so you had people from Europe, people from different European countries coming over on boats to New York, to Ellis Island.
Yeah.
I was like, the opening scene
of the Godfather. They came to live in like slums, and even earlier than that, like my ancestors, they came to tame the freaking prairie and fight Indians. Like they didn't just come to piggyback off of social services, which is funny because like with my ancestors who moved to Iowa, the government didn't tell them about the Native Americans. They just, because they didn't want the military to deal with them, it's like, we'll just throw women and children at them, and eventually that will work.
What decade was this?
Early 1800s.
Right. Okay. Interesting times.
Like, eventually that will work.
It manifest destiny.
Booyah. Yeah. Conquer a whole fucking continent.
From sea to shining sea.
Kicked your ass. All right, so we're about to run out of time. I'm going to end this meeting. We'll be right back.
Okay.
For the audience, it'll be nothing. There we go. End meeting for all. All right, we are back. Sorry about that. Zoom's a piece of shit. We love you, but Zoom, but no.
Same, we're going to have to find a new recording format.
No, and you fuck up the video quality too. Like I have a 4K webcam right here, and it looks like shit on this. There's a car alarm going off outside. It's terrifying. Yeah.
Nuts. Well, I got this laptop on Black Friday in my senior year of college for like $60 or something. So yeah, you get what you pay for.
I got this for $300 at Walmart because it turns out a Chromebook is basically a smartphone with a keyboard.
I have a Chromebook as well.
I don't like it.
Not as good as yours, but yeah. No.
So you're British. So here's my big question for you: are you a Doctor Who fan?
I don't mind it. I'm not a diehard fan. The last one I really watched all the way through was when David Tennant
was in it. My boy.
2000s. I really enjoyed that one. I couldn't get into it as much when he left. I understand like
no Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi, nothing.
Sorry?
No Matt Smith or Peter Capaldi.
They were okay. I just couldn't get into it as much. So it's like fair. I had other things to do when it was on a Saturday night. So
have you seen The Thick of It?
I haven't. No.
God, it's my favorite like British television show ever.
Yeah.
If you heard of Veep, it's like how The Office was like originally a British show and America took it. Yeah. Veep is like that to The Thick of It.
Okay.
It's amazing.
I think I've heard of it. I have to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's one of the funniest shows I've ever seen. No, all right. What were we talking about? We were Michelle Obama, penis, something like that.
Big Mike.
Big Mike.
I think
he is gay. Barack Obama.
I don't think Biden's going to run for president, and I think they're going to replace him with either Gavin Newsom. You were saying Michelle Obama. I don't think Michelle Obama wants to be the
I hope not
president. I really
they have no one else. Bernie Sanders is too old. Then he's finally starting to show his age. No one likes Kamala Harris.
No.
You
gotta go with somebody.
No,
They should
Barack
have gone with
Obama's
Bobby
gay.
Kennedy. They should have gone with Bobby Kennedy, but
Bobby
obviously the
Kennedy. No, he's
Democrats
doing
just
third party.
he is, yeah, but originally
He
he was
needs to
running as a
cough.
Democrat. So
Bobby Kennedy. He needs to cough. He's like talking like that. That's mean. He probably has
yeah,
some
it's
like
like
throat
it's not
cancer or
his fault.
something. No, I
He's
like
not
him.
got throat. He's got a very rare throat condition.
I
So
wouldn't
he's
vote
like
for him,
he
but I
looks
like him.
if you I really like him as well. If he was he's gonna have to run as a Republican if he wants to be the president because
No,
the
if he gets
Democrats
above
are so
10% in the polls, he's gonna die. They're not gonna let him live. He's a Kennedy.
well, it happened to his dad. It didn't
Those,
happen to his uncle
those
in
guys
the
are
80s. My
well. Yes,
uncle
he
kind
did get about. He just killed a woman in a car. He just drowned her in a
Ted
river.
Kennedy, yeah, he was drunk driving. He was drunk driving.
No,
He
I
accidentally
forgot the hooker in the back of my
ran,
car was in there
ran into a
when I
lake,
drove it
and
off a
then he was
bridge and
like,
swam out.
I'm just gonna leave this here." Yeah, I was like, he was not as noble as his other three brothers. So
I had no
his
idea
oldest
she
brother.
was in there. Oh
I
God.
was like, yeah. So obviously you got Joe Kennedy. Joe Kennedy Jr. is a war hero. Died in a plane crash
Oh
in
yep,
World War II.
yep, remember him.
Not plane crash. The engine just exploded. And then you got JFK, who's obviously so JFK. I don't know
He
what you
did
think of
well.
it. He's one of my top presidents of all time.
I like him
And then you
too.
got,
Too bad the
then you
Illuminati
got
killed him.
the Illuminati,
No,
CIA,
it wasn't the.
definitely.
It was I see the JFK that conspiracy theory. I believe the official story, but if it came out the CIA did it, it wouldn't shock me at all.
I don't believe the official story one bit. I think if I
Fair
ever
enough.
receive, no,
Go on
I don't believe
YouTube,
any of
look up Trevor Moore kitty history.
it. Okay, I'll
It's a
take a look into
song
it.
like I don't
Yeah.
know if you heard Trevor Moore, Whitest Kids You Know. It's a song he did where basically it's like it's about how like cat history is the same as humans, and he goes into conspiracy theory that links the JFK assassination with 9/11. It's hilarious.
I think there is a link because the CIA was involved in both.
Yeah, and apparently
When
because LBJ's wife, her father was like the CEO of like Bell Huey or something like that, the helicopter
yeah,
defense contractor, and so he killed him, became president, sold him the contracts, and then and George H.W. Bush, according to the song, was involved in that. He got promoted to essentially vice president by these people and made a bunch of deals with the Saudis to basically attack Iraq during the first Gulf War, but they weren't able to get Saddam kicked out, so they threw him out. Got the other George Bush in there, and there's what's the commission called? The Warren Commission or something like that. Yep,
yeah.
where they figured out like the only way to start a new war was to have a new Pearl Harbor. This is like a year before 9/11, and then 9/11 happens, and then yeah, Saddam gets
Okay.
kicked out. I
Very
explained that
interesting.
terribly, but go watch the song.
I'll take a look into that. But
What's
it's
your
like
favorite conspiracy theory?
the JFK. So the Warren Commission, they concluded they went
Oh, that
out
was
right from the
something else.
very
Now,
start.
I don't know what commission it is. It was some commission.
The Warren Commission was the
That
JFK
was Jack.
commission.
Yeah, different
It was named
commission.
after L. Warren, who was the head of the commission. It was
Yep.
actually headed by Alan Dulles, who was the CIA director that JFK fired after the Bay of Pigs invasion, which he had no business being on that
No.
commission. So obviously he had conflicting interests. I also believe that he's the one who gave the order to have him killed. So it was like he really shouldn't have been
Really?
on that commission.
No
So when you
LBJ? No.
LBJ. I don't know. I don't think LBJ was involved in it. I know a lot of people do think that. I think LBJ knew who did it and was like, I'm not gonna say anything because I could easily go the same way. I think Richard Nixon also knew
Yeah, no,
exactly.
yeah, yeah. When he got drunk, it's like the same
You
people
know,
who
he
got
did it.
JFK got me, but a bullet would have been too obvious.
Yeah, yeah,
I think he said that to Reagan or something.
yeah. I think he did say that to Reagan. And he also said in the press conference, "Oh, you're going to do the same thing to me you did to John." As he said, "Do we want another Bay of Pigs?"
No, and Watergate wasn't even his idea. Like when he found out about it, there was a recording of him saying, "Whose dumbass idea was that?"
Yeah, so I think Nixon's one of the most misunderstood presidents of
Oh,
all time. I think he was
absolutely,
actually a
yeah.
lot better. I think he was a good president actually.
Oh
He
yeah.
reduced he pulled troops out of Vietnam, which
Yep.
I think LBJ is probably one of the. We're going back to the discussion earlier. He's one of the worst presidents
Oh
of
yeah.
all
Oh
time.
God, yes. Horrible
Yeah, so
racist too.
yeah, of course he was. It's like, I'll have
He's
those. I'm not gonna say the exact quote, but it's like, I'll have
I'll
those.
have
Anyone
those you know what's voting Democrat the
voting
next
Democrat
100
for the next
years.
100 years. It's
Yep.
like, yeah. But back to the JFK
Great
assassination. It's like,
Society
I
program.
believe
Fuck
that.
that guy.
So I've been. Have you ever been to Dealey Plaza? Dealey
No.
Plaza. Okay, so I've been there. So I've been in the room where Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly was. He wasn't, but he was actually on the second floor eating his lunch at the time, according to many witnesses. I've also stood on the grassy knoll, and I've stood. There's a cross. There's multiple crosses, 3 crosses on the road where the bullets supposedly hit. One of them hit the sidewalk. One of them hit Kennedy in the shoulder. According to the official story, the other one hit him in the head. So I've stood on the grassy knoll from where the snipers, according to conspiracy theories, lines up perfectly. It lines up a lot better than the window on the 6th floor of the school book depository.
Yeah.
So if you look at the official story, it says 3 bullets were fired from the 6th floor depository. One of them missed, hit the sidewalk, a piece of the sidewalk chipped up and hit a pedestrian in the eye. He had to go.
Didn't a Secret Service guy get hit too? Or did a Secret Service member get hit too, or is that the Reagan assassination?
I think that was the Reagan assassination.
Oh yeah, that's that's Brady Bill. Yeah.
Was what was his name now? The Secret Service member was actually the one who ran onto the car. I know his name. I'm gonna be Clint Hill. Clint Hill was his name. Clint Hill ran onto the car when the bullets were fired. But he was actually told to not be on the back of the car, which is very coincidental. So if you look at the actual forensics that happened on that day, so 3 shots were fired. One of them missed, hit the sidewalk, hit the pedestrian in the eye. He had to go to Park Lane Hospital. The second one supposedly hit Kennedy in the shoulder, and the third one hit him in the head. But what people don't talk about, or a lot of people do talk about, what the Warren Commission doesn't talk about, that the bullet. There was also the governor of Texas, Governor Connolly.
Yep. He was in there.
Hitting the wrist.
Yep.
With a bullet. So they decided to say, well, only 3 shots were fired. How does that make sense? One of them hit the sidewalk, one of them hit Kennedy in the shoulder, one of them hit him in the head. I was like, oh, the bullet which went through his shoulder, Kennedy's shoulder, also went around, hit Connolly in the shoulder too, and then made the trajectory down.
Magic bullet, wrist, obviously.
And then went through. And they found this bullet, the magic bullet. Yeah, I was like, they found this bullet in pristine condition, and they tested that, the forensic, every single time. As soon as it hits the wrist is a very strong bone.
Yeah,
the bullet's completely shattered. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. No. That's the theory that the Warren Commission went with. So it doesn't make any sense when you look at that.
Well, and have you heard the connections between like Jack Ruby, the guy who killed Lee Harvey Oswald, and like the CIA?
FBI, actually.
FBI, yeah, one of those.
He was a mob informant for the FBI.
Yep.
And there's a lot of interesting stories about Jack Ruby. So
they went up and shot him out of patriotism or some shit. No, they paid him off.
Yeah, so the official story is he supposedly shot him because he didn't want Jackie Kennedy to have to go back to Dallas and listen to the.
He seems like a nice guy. I believe him.
I was like, no, actually, he wasn't. And then the CIA visited him when he was in prison and then gave him some psychiatric drugs, which we now know is LSD.
Yeah.
And then he was
MK Ultra, crazy story.
He couldn't testify, and he died of cancer.
That so I didn't hear about. Holy shit!
The forensics itself doesn't make any sense because obviously it's impossible for that bullet to do that much damage. Yeah. So there has to have been more than one shooter. There's plenty of forensic evidence to suggest it was more than one shooter, but the Warren Commission completely ignored it because they wanted this one man, Lee Harvey Oswald, who was the patsy, to being the guy who fired the 3 shots and killed it. Yeah. And it's possible for it with the gun that he had, which cost $12.75, which he bought from a sporting goods store, mailing order.
God, if only today.
To Alex Heidel was his pseudonym, which he ordered it to. And like going off the laws at the time, if you ordered it to a pseudonym to his mailbox, then he wouldn't have been able to sign for it because his name's Lee Harvey Oswald and he didn't present any ID, so it would have just got sent back in the first place. That doesn't make any sense.
No.
There's a lot of things in that assassination which don't make any sense in the slightest. So obviously it's forensic. So if you start looking at why did they ignore all these witness testimonies? Loads of witness testimonies say that there was a shot from the grassy knoll, multiple shots from the grassy knoll. Also, the forensics, when JFK his body was examined, they found a clear entrance wound in his throat. And they decided, and a bunch of CIA operatives went there and said, no, the doctors aren't allowed to carry out this autopsy. We're going to do it. And they kept, and all of the doctors agreed, yeah, that is an entrance wound in his throat. So it's like there was definitely, according to all of
that, I did not know about.
Yeah, there was an entrance wound in his throat and in his skull as well.
Yep, and if you
look at the Zapruder film as well,
yep,
there's a clear video Kennedy's head goes back into the left when he's assassinated, and they tried to gaslight us, the Warren Commission did. Like, oh, it could actually happen when that shot comes from the front. Comes from behind, actually.
No.
It's like, how many times that the shot goes back into the left? So according to physics, the bullet from the gun must have come from the front because it's going to hit him in the head, and then it's going to go back like that.
Yeah,
and
whips it back.
Oh, but the blood is actually going forward. Therefore, it must mean the shot came from behind. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that. Because if you shoot someone, I've never shot anybody, obviously, but
I
it's
hope
like
not.
I've seen videos.
Well, you
I've
can't
seen
have
videos.
guns.
It just explodes. It goes everywhere.
Yeah.
I was like, so that doesn't make any sense. So they just gaslight the public into believing that. And I was like, so if all of the forensics suggest that the Warren Commission is wrong, why did they lie? Why did they not listen to all these witness testimonies? There's also this witness testimony. There was three people who worked in the school book depository who said they swore that at 12 o'clock they saw Lee Harvey Oswald on the third or the fourth floors. I can't remember which one it was, eating his lunch. And then after Kennedy was shot, they saw him downstairs on the second floor. They proved it's impossible for Lee Harvey Oswald to have fired 3 shots, hid the rifle, ran down the stairs, the fire escape, and got to the second floor and be putting a nickel into the vending machine to buy a Coke. And also, even let's say he could do that. He's not an athlete.
No.
He would have been massively out of breath. It was like he looks perfectly fine. So it's like I think the Warren Commission interviewed this woman. I can't remember what her name was, and the recording of it completely disappeared. But an independent journalist tracked her down. She lived in San Francisco in the 2000s. Interviewed her again. I was like, yeah, the Warren Commission, like they said, yeah, we interviewed her, but she was the story didn't add up. So and then the recording was disposed of.
Yeah.
So
well, I saw this thing where this former CIA agent gave like a recorded deathbed confession to his son that like he was involved in it or something. Why do you think they did it though?
Well, I think they did it because Kennedy was massively opposed to a war in Vietnam.
Yeah. Well, have you heard of Operation Northwoods?
Yes, I have heard.
Yeah, that is where he like where he completely put his foot down on it when they were planning to murder American citizens.
We call ourselves a human race.
That's a terrifying story.
That's why I
think Curtis LeMay had something to do with it.
It's possible, yeah.
That crazy son of a bitch.
There's a bunch of reasons why they did it. I was like, first of all, you have to go back. Is like if the Warren Commission lied, I was like, why did they lie in the first place? Well, I believe it's because the person who was really the head of that, not Earl Warren, Alan Dulles, was in charge of the investigation. He's the one who gave the order to have him killed. Is why I believe that. So he was on the commission, first of all. So he was the head of the CIA under Eisenhower. And then Kennedy decided to keep him on in his first year. And then he had the Bay of Pigs invasion.
Yep.
And which I'm sure you know all about. But the Bay of Pigs invasion, basically, they had a bunch of Cuban rebels who said, we're going to overthrow the Cuban government.
Went very well, I heard.
And he said that it's going to be a foolproof plan. It's going to be easy. You won't need to send in the U.S. military. And Kennedy said, I will not send in U.S. troops, U.S. Navy, or U.S. Air Force, no matter what. It doesn't matter what happens. I am not
would have started World War III.
Yeah. So Alan Dulles said, yeah, it's fine. But he truly believed that he knew it was going to go really bad. At the 11th hour, Kennedy would have to send in U.S. assistance, military assistance, but he refused to. But in public, Kennedy said, yeah, I take full blame for this. But in reality, it was Alan Dulles lying to him. CIA lying to him. So you have that famous quote, as Kennedy said, I will shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind. He immediately fired Alan Dulles. But Alan Dulles, he stuck around. He was like, a lot of people in the CIA still really respected him and still listened to him and still treated him like a leader. So just because Kennedy fired him and he wasn't on the payroll anymore didn't mean he lost his power.
What do you think about the moon landing conspiracy theories?
I will shatter the CIA into 1,000 pieces and scatter it into the wind. You think the CIA is going to just take that lightly?
No, God, no.
Probably not. So that's one of them. The other one was he wanted peace after the Cuban Missile Crisis was the other one, because he was like, all his military advisors were saying, we need to take military action. We need to go in there and take these missiles down by force. And Kennedy was saying, no, we're not doing that, because it's going to lead to a nuclear war. All his military advisors, they were so desperate.
Yeah, and that's Curtis LeMay. The guy's out of his mind.
Yes. Okay, so
bombs away LeMay.
Yeah, of course. But they wanted any excuse to start a war with Cuba, so they were actually really excited about this. It's we can get a war with Cuba out of this because the war is very, very profitable.
Oh,
Obviously,
absolutely.
so even though it's going to destroy half of the human race, so Kennedy was like, "No, we're dealing with this diplomatically." So he, against his military advisor's will, he sent his brother over to somewhere in Eastern Europe, it wasn't Russia, to meet with Khrushchev and discuss this and diplomatically say, "Okay, we're going to remove the blockade which he put in place from Cuba.
Take missiles out of
We will
Turkey.
remove missiles from Turkey that we have pointing at Moscow. In return, you will remove the missiles from Cuba." And then he said, "Yeah, okay." So it was over. Red October was finished. And the CIA really didn't like that because they felt as though he was a traitor for doing so and he was being weak. And then after that, Kennedy and Khrushchev grew very close. And they were saying,
That's where the red phone came. Well, red phone didn't really exist. But yeah.
They put the phone, the direct line from the White
House. It wasn't a red phone, but like it's a direct line.
Yeah. So after that, they grew talking about let's just we have to just coexist in this world. Like we have to just accept the facts that we're going to be capitalists and you're going to be communist.
Yeah.
And let's just be at peace with it. And like no need to fight over it. So it's like let's just work together. And Kennedy actually suggested, like, we've got this plan. We want to send a man to the moon by 1969, end of 1969. Why don't we just work together on that? Because if you have the US and the Russians, it's like we'll get there way before 1969 working on it because we're the two most intelligent scientists.
And they got to space first.
In the world. I was like, yeah, they were working towards that, and the CIA and they hated it. They thought it was like Kennedy's a traitor because he's compromising with the communists. And Fidel Castro actually said on November 21st, 1963, that he thinks because they're working towards peace, Kennedy will go down as the greatest American president since Lincoln.
Yep.
And the day after it was there was also two other assassination plots which he was warned about. One was in Chicago, so it was the Army versus Navy game at Soldier Field, which Kennedy was always in attendance for. He went and there was this assassination plot which he was warned about. Somebody actually called Lee. He didn't give his second name. Somebody called Lee phoned in and said there's going to be an assassination plot. He gave the names. Thomas Arthur Val, I think he was called, was the supposed assassin. He was very, very much like Lee Harvey.
Why is it always three names with the presidential assassination?
I was thinking exactly that. It was
John Wilkes Booth, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah, exactly. There was Thomas Arthur Val was he was a military man who with Soviet ties. He worked for the CIA. And Lee Harvey Oswald, that's a fact. He works for the CIA.
Yep. That is weird ties to Cuba and the Soviet Union too.
Yeah.
Probably some kind of spy.
So they somebody called Lee called him up, warned him off it. So they withdrew the plot. Kennedy didn't actually go to Chicago, but he was in attendance the other 2 years that he was president for the Army versus Navy game. Obviously, he was in the Navy himself, so he was a Navy man. Roger Staubach got the jersey down over there. Like he was Kennedy's favorite player.
Didn't know that.
And then there was one in Tampa as well. The one in Tampa didn't go ahead, but it was all planned, and they had they found schematics of it. It was supposed to be at this sharp turn, like Elm Street is in Dallas, where the motorcade, big stretch limousine, has to slow down and give him time to shoot, basically.
Yeah. The one kind of thing, like the one, my own caveat with those is like, wasn't the decision to not have like the car, like the whatever the cover on the car is, kind of a last minute thing. So it kind of hinges on that, doesn't it?
Head of security also on that day was actually told that he was overdue for a vacation. It was mandatory that he had to take a vacation on the weekend, on the week that Kennedy was assassinated. So they would say, you're not allowed to work, you have to take a vacation, which is very interesting as well. You could say, oh, it's just a coincidence. I think with everything else that's gone on, I think it's very unlikely that was a coincidence.
Yeah.
So there's so much about the Kennedy assassination which points to the CIA doing that. And when you open that can of worms, what else have they done?
Let's talk about one thing, the moon landing. What do you think about that?
I think that the moon landing was definitely a real thing.
Okay, good. There we go.
I'm not of the... As I believe that people... I was actually listening to something earlier. It was a Daily Wire podcast. You might have listened to it.
Yep.
I was like, people in this day and age, they been brainwashed to the extent where they hate their own country.
Oh yeah, that was the backstage. I just listened to that yesterday.
Yeah, the backstage ones. You remember what they said? It's like they've been brainwashed. And I agree with it 100%. They've been brainwashed to hate their own country and hate all of the achievements that they've done. And so as a result, they want to say, oh, we never even went to the moon, because it's basically a way of saying, you remember what Trump was saying, like, we'll make America great again. You had a bunch of people saying like, America was never great.
Never
When
great.
was America great? As well, it is the greatest country in the history of the world. I'm not even an American. That's what I'm saying. It is. So without America,
no offense, when we kicked your ass, won World War II. Well, then you got us back. So that's fair enough.
So 1812 was an interesting one because
New Orleans, baby.
Really. So yeah. 17. The American Revolution actually is obviously, because I'm British, a lot of my American friends like to poke fun at it.
I would imagine.
One of my favorite moments in history, actually, when all things considered, was the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Because when you look at it in context, I think people just brush over it. It's like, oh, these men signed the Declaration of Independence because they wanted America to be free. When you actually look at the context of it, there were 56 men in that room.
Yeah,
they committed treason against the king, and they knew
powerful
that they were
country in the world at the time.
Yeah. Most powerful nation in the world. So they knew, they assumed like, we're risking our lives. We're all probably going to die, and this probably won't be successful, but we're risking our lives because we believe that it's the right thing to do. We believe that the people in these colonies, these 13 colonies, should have the right to be not to be taxed without representation, which is what was happening at the time. You can debate over that, but it's like they were very rich and wealthy men. They could have just sat back, easily paid their taxes, lived very nice lives, and not have to worry about anything. Every single one of them was very wealthy. They risked everything that they had in the name. It was like, we believe that this is right, and we're willing to risk our lives, our families, all of our possessions, and they did it. And it's like, I think that's a very admirable thing to look at.
Absolutely. And if you look at politicians back then, like compared to now, like when George Washington's at at the end of his second term, he was talking about stepping down. There's obviously no two-term rule. I think it was King George who said, like, if he does that, he'll be the greatest man who ever lived. Can you imagine? Like, I truly believe every president the past 30 years or so, if they could have run for a third term, they absolutely would. Because they just, like, Joe Biden has been trying to be president since the 90s. He doesn't want to be a civil servant. He wants to just have another notch on the belt.
I think he's just a very power mad, selfish, senile old man, to be honest.
Well, he used to be. Now he's a celery stock.
Yeah, if it was up to him, he'd probably want to be president until he eventually dies.
So about 10 minutes.
Shit, done a terrible job, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, they don't care. They have enough money. They can just live in their bunkers and get sucked off by trafficked migrant children all they want. Doesn't matter. They don't have to deal with us.
Yeah, well, Bill's got a lot of experience in that.
Bill, oh God, you know what? If there's one president I want to hang out with, it's Bill Clinton.
He's regardless a very
of the weird stuff. I bet he's a fun guy.
He's a very likable, but that's why he got elected in the first place, because he was so much more likable than Bush, even though he was way worse of a president. And I've said this before on record. I believe the world would be a much, much better place if George Bush won the election in 1992. But it's like Clinton won so many people over because, he was funny. I was like, he was easy to get along with. He gave really good speeches, to be fair to him.
Frat guy.
Yeah, but basically, I was like, this guy's great. I was like, even though he's a complete scumbag, whose imprints have been left on history forever, and it's everything that's happened
imprints
in the past 30 years. It started when he became president and the policies that he had in place in the first place, including the war between Russia and Ukraine, because he was the president. This is one of the other reasons why I think he's one of the worst presidents of all time. Maybe not as worse as LBJ, who started the Vietnam War, or James Buchanan, who started the Civil War. But he's the one who decided, we're going to expand NATO. And when so we got meeting finishes in 10
minutes.
All right, we'll wrap this up. So
we'll keep going.
He was the one who said, it was like, we're going to expand NATO to the east, even though when Reagan and Gorbachev negotiated to end the Cold War, they said, we will allow you to reunite Germany and let it be a NATO country. Obviously, it was split into east and west at the time. We had the Berlin Wall coming down, which was like really the highlight of the Reagan presidency.
Yep.
I was like, we'll allow you to reunite NATO on the condition, and it wasn't a written agreement, it was a verbal promise, basically, so out of good faith, you will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. And since then, they've expanded it all the way up to Ukraine.
Poland, Estonia, Latvia, all those countries.
never should have been allowed, but Clinton was the first one to do that. And you had a bunch of Clinton's secretary, Clinton's
Monica Lewinsky.
advisors at the time,
Nope.
Robert McNamara, he was also
Yep.
Kennedy's, it was also JFK's advisor as well. Like he said, this will be the biggest mistake that NATO ever makes.
Yeah.
So not NATO, the biggest mistake the US ever makes in the post-Cold War era is what he said. So and since that's directly led to it. I don't know. Did you watch that video I did on the reviewing Tucker Carlson and
I did not.
Putin?
No. I will.
I talked about that there. So as I said, this is why I think Clinton's one of the worst presidents America's ever had, because also he was, when that was happening, you obviously watched the interview. It was like one of the biggest pieces of information I took from that was Putin, when he became president and Clinton was on his way out in the year 2000, said, "Hey Bill, I would really like for Russia to join NATO. So do you think that'd be possible?" And then Clinton said, "Yeah, you know what? I think that'd be a good idea." And what happened was Clinton then spoke to the CIA. CIA said no.
Yep.
But obviously expanding all the way, you're not allowed to join Russia, but all these other countries leading up to you are, and we're going to station nuclear weapons and missiles there and bio
right on your border. Yep.
Right on your border. So obviously there was going to be some sort of a reaction. And I think the media, the mainstream media, is criminal for not addressing that.
Look, there's no argument to be made that Trump wasn't right about NATO. Like I think before Ukraine, it was like the 2% was the agreed on yearly GDP, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes, and I think before Ukraine, the number, it was like us paying way more than that. You guys and Greece were the only ones paying it, and somehow that's just allowed. As far as I'm concerned, if you're not paying it, you don't get the umbrella of protection.
I agree 100%. Yes, that was something we were paying a fortune, not as much as the US, obviously. And Greece was all these other countries.
And we don't need NATO. We could be isolationist, perfectly reasonable behind our own borders.
I don't think we need it either. We're not a part of the continent. I think we'd get along just. Our military is very powerful.
Yeah, you got nukes. You don't need anyone else.
Fine. I'm sure the US and the UK could come to some sort of an alliance as well. I was like, so I'm massively against NATO, and I think NATO. I think when Trump said at the Republican debate in 2015, it's like, why are we in NATO? Everybody was like gasped. It's like, how dare you say that? And then he actually starts to think about it. It's like, well, everybody knows that the point of NATO is the Soviets invading Western Europe. It was like, hang on, the Soviets aren't there anymore.
Especially Russia today has proved to be like what they said, a paper tiger. We don't need them.
So yeah, we don't need it. All it's done is cause this war as well, and just so a bunch of people can basically money launderer for Ukraine.
Oh my god! Yes, that's something. Before the war, everyone knew Ukraine was the most corrupt country in Europe. Now that suddenly went away, how much of that, like all the shit we've been giving them, you think has been going right to their oligarchs?
Of course, it has been as well. You watch that video? You watch that video that RFK did talking about like what?
BlackRock's going to own the country at the end of it.
They're getting they're going to take all of the agricultural land. BlackRock's going to, and it's just going to make them even more powerful.
Yep.
So that's it at the end of the day. But all the evidence suggests that that's true. Biden's just giving the contracts to these companies which are owned by BlackRock.
Yep. And when China moves on Taiwan, you're like the reason the whole world was able to go so gung-ho on Russia is because we don't get anything from them. Look around your house. How many things do you have that say made in Russia? We're not going to do for Taiwan what we did for Ukraine.
No, we won't.
We're cowards.
I will say I'm massively against buying products that are made in China because of the sheer inhumane process that goes through it. If I can avoid it, I will buy.
You really can't these days. The problem.
Yeah, so most of the stuff you see, I actually went out of my way specifically to buy stuff that's not made in China.
Good for you.
Actually, most of it's made in the US or the UK. But for most people, it's obviously electrical appliances, you can't really get away from it. Electrical outlets. I think I actually bought the latest iPhone, so I think that's made in India.
Really?
I was like, I usually don't bother with phones, but I thought because they started making them in India rather than China, I will actually pay a little bit more for it.
So not slave children, just like the lower caste.
Yeah, I don't actually care about having the latest phone. I've never had the latest phone up until now.
No, God, no. I have a
we're not going to make
Galaxy, whatever. I had an iPhone SE for the longest time.
Actually, I bought this. I can't tell the difference between it. It's a little bit faster, I guess. A little bit of memory. But because they decided we're going to make them in India starting this year rather than China, I was like, yeah, okay, I can get on board with that. India's on our side.
That's better. I think this is made in
Yeah.
Vietnam or something.
Yeah, probably not a good
Yeah,
country.
and at the end of the day, I care less about that because even like a lot of the American products, they're controlled by the unions. So you're choosing between American communist crap or Chinese communist crap, and more often than not, the Chinese communist shit is better.
At least it's made by an American.
Yeah, fair. You know what? Fair enough.
A job to an American citizen.
Yeah, true. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we got 4 minutes left. Anything else you want to go over?
We didn't talk as much about sports as I thought we were going
No.
to.
Oh, let's do that real quick. How do you feel about Brittany Mahomes? That just like popped in my mind. Not sure.
You know,
I don't really like her.
I don't. A lot of people really don't like her. I think she's just a
She's the
passionate
most
fan.
supportive wife
Yeah.
in the NFL. It's easy to support your husband when she's playing in the fucking Super Bowl.
Obviously, she goes to every single game. She's obviously very knowledgeable.
There is no wife in the NFL who supports her husband's checkbook more than Brittany Mahomes.
Yeah, of course. That's and why wouldn't you?
Comes back and there's just like a car in the driveway. Like, honey, I bought this for you with my credit card.
I'm friends with a girl who went to Texas Tech, and she knew both of them. And she said they argued a lot.
I would imagine
from that. So any couple argues, I guess. But it's like, look, they've been supportive of each other. I think she's a very passionate fan.
It's
like,
easy
she gets
to support
excited
a guy when he's in the NFL.
Yeah, of course.
Let's see how well she supports him if he gets knocked down to like the Arena Football League or something like that.
I don't think that's ever going to happen, just because his career.
Well, I mean, like, yeah.
All right, where do you rank Mahomes all time amongst quarterbacks?
Well, okay. I like the Joe not ranking Joe Biden. I feel like that's not necessarily fair because his career isn't over yet. But right now, I'd top 20 at least.
Top 20?
Gun in my head. Top 15 probably. Maybe probably not top 10.
Because I get that his career isn't over yet, so you don't want to rank him that high. But like, what he's already done, he's won 3 Super Bowls, even though it's a team sport. The quarterback doesn't win it all on his own, but he's had signature games where he's put the team on his back, the offense at least on his back, and carried them towards victory. His first Super Bowl.
It's also easy to do when the refs are bending over and then you fuck him in the ass for the whole game.
Okay, yeah, but his first Super Bowl he won against the 49ers. He put the team on his back in the playoffs in 3 straight games. They were down by a lot of points. They were down by like 24 against Houston, and they came back and won. And that's because of Mahomes' leadership. Defense played well as well, of course. The offense is only on the field half the time, but the defense played really well. Mahomes put the offense on his back and took them to victory, basically. So he's had 3 Super Bowls. 3 Super Bowl MVPs as well. I think
3.
2 league MVPs. One of which he had a 5,000-yard season and 50 touchdown passes. I was like, he's only 6 years in. He's 29 years old. So I think he's already achieved more than most Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So I've got him definitely.
Fair enough.
I was like, when you actually take a step back and look at it, I think, yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, I don't like ranking people until the book has been written. Okay, we got less than a minute left. I think we're going to wrap this up. This was great. Yeah, you're way smarter than I am. So that's cool.
In certain subjects, maybe, but I'm sure you're a lot smarter than I am.
All right, we'd love to have you back on sometime in the near future.
Yeah, I'd love to have you on my show as well.
I would love to, absolutely. Maybe it'll be more sports-based.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, it's been great. Goodbye from this side of the Atlantic.
Yeah, great to meet you, Evan.
Peace.